brands, the programmatic world, that's kind of the thematic of this. And I want to take a slightly more expansive part of the conversation. But, from your perspective of Videology, where's the biggest heartburn today when we talk about brands and marketers coming to the table? Like, where are the pain points that you guys are having the greatest impact and that you're hearing the loudest from that stakeholder?
For brands, I think the biggest problems that are impeding brands' ability to be effective today is really still related to silos of execution and silos of technology, which are really getting in the way of, I think, brands really fully being able to execute what we think the full value and potential of programmatic buying is. And so to unpack that a little bit, if you just think a little bit about how does a brand realize marketing effectiveness? And for us, marketing effectiveness is simple. It's just what's the cost per point of KPI achievement, whatever that KPI is, right? So how do they achieve that when it comes to advertising? And we're video specialists. It really is about unduplicated audience reach. So how do you find audience in unduplicated ways with the right periodicity? If I'm selling soap, I might want to reach fresh audience once a week, be top of mind. If I'm selling the opening to Star Wars, I might want to reach them once a day for 8 days. Every brand has the right different periodicity with which that unduplicated reach needs to happen, but essentially the marketing effectiveness game is about unduplicated reach. So in that context, we think there's a lot going on. We think there's been a lot of great strides and progress made in the world of programmatic, which has delivered amazing benefits to brands. But there is still a lot of silos of technology and execution which are impeding the brand's ability to deliver that unduplicated reach. So that's the stuff I think we're working hardest on for brands.
So part of that is, your sort of definition of video has become expansive, right? So you're sort of talking about other areas like VOD and television, right? And tell me how that kind of comes together with programmatic.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the implementation of programmatic for television versus VOD versus digital video is different.
Yeah, and it's a well-known problem in television because even though audiences have stayed strong in television, they've started to congregate in different demographic pools, right? So the distribution of reach in television is creating some problems and challenges for marketers in television. And essentially what's going on there is there's still plenty of GRPs, but the GRPs are driven much more and more by frequency, less by unduplicated reach. So there's a funky distribution of the reach curve in television. But because so much consumer behavior has moved to video, digital video, people understand, rightly so, that moving money into digital video creates opportunity for unduplicated reach. I think what people are starting to realize, and we want them to realize more quickly, is that even within the world of digital video execution, there's an awful lot getting in the way of brands being able to effectively build unduplicated reach in video. That has to do with silos. I'm buying my FEP over here. I'm buying my endemic digital sites over here. I'm buying my long-tail programmatic over here. I'm not applying data and ad decision into all of it. I'm not portfolio optimizing all of it. So these things are still happening in silos of execution.
And is that because there are different stakeholders on the buy side? Is that because it's like, tell me why, because that feels quite inefficient, right? And what we all have the same is time in the day, right? So tell me the origin of that disparity.
Well, look, I think we'll get through it. I think it's just an issue about where we are in the journey and where I think we still have, when it comes to technology strategy for brand marketers and agencies, I still think we're in a bit of a world where our structure's driving strategy. And so I think we're working really hard, and Doug Ray earlier, eloquently talked about the need and power of specialism in agencies, and I completely concur with that. Our view is people need to be specialized and technology needs to be horizontal. And so we think with platforms and technology and the right application of data across the workflow, that's the way to break down silos, not by mushing people all into one big pot of people, but by giving them the platforms, tools, and technology so they can make more effective ad decisions holistically for brand marketers, understanding that that's still happening within various areas of specialism within agencies or brand marketers.
Right, and you're enabling that by, you look at the integration of your stack, right? Like you're solving the problem of, for buyers, the demand side solution, and then integrating if they need to directly with a DMP or providing them with that. Like, it feels like the opportunity to have to minimize the number of conversations you have to actually deliver a programmatic buy is a big part of that, correct?
It is, and it's a portfolio management game. It's how do I manage the inventory of portfolio I own, have the right to buy or have real-time access to? How do I manage that entire portfolio of inventory against the portfolio of KPIs and objectives I need to serve those impressions against?
Right.
And so I think the two principal challenges we are trying to solve in that context. One is, yes, it is about how do we break down those silos to build unduplicated reach across channels. That is number one. It's the first step we've all got to go through. We've talked about universal IDs and universal targeting solutions. It's really important.
Do you guys have a UID?
We do.
Okay.
Once you get through that gate, though, the second big thing, which is really complex mathematics, is figuring out how to portfolio optimize against that incremental reach. And that's just as simple as, we see you. You have 1,500 characteristics. Are we better to show you the ad impression for the vacation to the Caribbean, or are we better to show you the ad impression for a new pair of shoes? I don't know. And it's just because people have so many complex overlapping characteristics, and inventory has complex and overlapping characteristics, impressions do. So the real game for portfolio management, the next level of efficiency for marketers, publishers, and agencies is really going to come when they're truly able to portfolio optimize, not just finding unduplicated reach, but using their portfolio of inventory in the most efficient and effective way against those audiences that they're seeing.
So tell me about, because the UID is something actually we haven't talked a lot about of late, but it's really relevant. So tell me how the UID kind of both for publishers and for buyers evolves when we start bringing in, non-IP or tagging or cookie-based non-digital platforms, right?
There's a lot of great work going on in this space, which is really, in my opinion, across a lot of companies, right? Which is really about harmonizing data sets and characteristics which are very stable versus data sets and user characteristics which are less stable, and then managing it where that data is coming in on a household level versus when that data is coming in on an individual level, and how we marry and match those things to append individuals and devices to households. So whether we're targeting a device, targeting an individual, aggregating up to the household, we're able to understand all of the characteristics of what you could potentially target against within that particular ID. But I think there's a lot of great companies working on that. I really agree with what Doug said before about it isn't no one's going to own the universal ID ecosystem. It's about having your own capabilities, playing really well with others, and really being able to support either directly through our own platform or by playing really well with other platforms or agencies' proprietary systems where we can really support those goals they have around universal targeting.
So I think just to sort of wrap it up, last question, let's take it down to the ground, right? So Doug had a lot of really insightful things to say about, his perspective from the buy side, sort of his leadership role in an agency. So let's look at Doug's programmatic, planners, buyers, et cetera. They're in the weeds. They're the 25-year-olds, right, that just want the soul cycle glasses. Tell me tell me what you guys are doing in some of the technology solutions that really impacts their life and their ability to, with confidence, up the food chain eventually to Doug, let him know that they're delivering higher ROI for the client roster.
They need technology. So much of the technology has been focused on the trading desk, and then so much of as we move up into private marketplaces, it's all been about a deal ID and a lot of match deals, but we're not bringing full intelligence to video optimization. The next bastion, if I was just going to pick one spot for an agency and brand to unlock value, would be applying technology to all that very premium FEP inventory that they're buying. They're buying it out of the TV departments. They're buying it with fluidity from broadcasters and a lot of other places. That's the big pool of money with much more sophisticated portfolio management and support for better ad decisioning. That's where I think that's the next place I'd be going if I was a brand marketer and an agency in terms of the application of technology and platforms.
So a supply side strategy, if you will, really looking across. Yep. Okay. Awesome.